Alright, so recently I had a member of the Nexus forums ask me a question about they were having trouble setting up ForceGreet basically. And they asked me to make a little tutorial if I could, or to explain how to do it. And so I decided to go ahead and make this quick little tutorial. Now, rather than going through the process and showing you every single step of the way, which most normal tutorials would do, and most of the time I would do that, I kind of lack time right now. So I went ahead and actually created a quick ForceGreet scenario, and then I'm going to review with you how I did this and then let you guys determine this on your own. I'm not going to go into detail about how to create quests or AI packages or all that kind of stuff. Really, in order to do that, there are other tutorials out there, and if you don't understand the basics of how to do this, you really need to go out there and search them out. They're all over YouTube. Just look up creation kit tutorials. You'll find lots of them. You can go on the Nexus. You can find them there. There are plenty of places to find tutorials on these other subjects. Also, you'll need to know dialoguing as well and dialogue views. Okay, so to start off, what I did was I created a quest. Now I'm just going to go ahead and filter it to show you the quest I created. Okay, once it opens, I'm going to go under the quest data tab. This is where you initially start it. I gave it a quest ID. You don't need to give it a quest name when it's dialogue. Most mods, and most of the time it looks like Bethesda did it this way, where they would create dialogue quests, and these are just specifically to control all the dialogue for certain areas or certain locations. And I usually do this with my plugin to control pretty much everything I can from one little quest, all the dialogue and all the settings, and put all the views in one place and have them start game enabled. So I don't have a bunch of quests that are start game enabled. I only have one singular quest controlling kind of as much as I can. So the next thing I did was I gave it a priority of 60 to make sure that the game sees it. It is start game enabled. I have marked it for allow repeated stages and run once. Now you need to create a condition when you're doing this. This is why I've created a quest. You have to create a condition to stop the ForceGreet from playing over and over again. Otherwise, it'll continue that behavior, and it'll keep trying to ForceGreet. Even if your dialogue has been passed, it's done, it's over, it'll keep forcing it on you, and you'll get kind of weird little things happening. It'll move on to the other dialogue, or just blank dialogue if you don't have any other dialogue. One way I would recommend, I mean, this is not the only way to do this. There are lots of ways you can accomplish this. You'll just have to be creative and do this on your own. But a lot of people will probably use quest stages and create a quest stage, and then once that, just detect that whether that quest stage has happened or not, or what quest stage it's in order for that the conditions to be set for this to happen. The way I like to do it is I use a quest script. And I created my own here, and all I did was I just gave the quest its own quest script. I gave it an integer property. I like to use integer properties because you can set them to any digit that you want, and I can change conditions easily later on. The other thing is I named it greet, and I gave it conditional. I made it conditional so that it can be seen or modified outside of this quest and outside of this script. It can be seen elsewhere in the game, and be you can detect those variables on certain things, especially in the case of AI packages. You will need to mark this if you're going to use a quest condition, or I should say a quest script condition. You're going to need to mark that as conditional to be able to see the variable in that condition and to be able to use it. I've just made a little notation here using semicolon, because when you create a semicolon here, your line following this will not be seen by the script. It'll be ignored. This is so that you can make notes in your scripts. And I've only marked this as 0. 0 means basically what I'm saying here is I'm just making a note to the person reading the script that 0, I have not force greeted yet, and 1 will mean that I've force greeted. You can also do this with a Boolean effect if you want and set it to true or false if you wish. I just prefer integers because they give you more, it allows for a little more freedom depending on what you're doing. And I find that it just makes my workflow a little bit easier if I don't have to go back and change things later as often. Okay, so now that we've got our quest script and we've got our quest written and set up and start game enabled, the next thing we're going to want to do is you're going to want to create your NPC. But first, before you do that, let's go to voice type. You're going to want to create a custom voice type for it. Anytime you do custom dialogue, to keep your keep this as organized as possible, I always create my own voice type. You just quickly go in here and you click new and make a new voice type, and then you type in your name. I just called it ForceGreet NPC just for this tutorial. All you have to do is set it to male and hit OK, male or female, depending on whether they're male or female, and then you click OK. And that's pretty much all you need to know for that. And then once you create your NPC here, you're gonna have to create your NPC, and then what I would do is I'm gonna go ahead and edit his base and drop him within the world so you have a way to reference him later on. In here you're gonna have to do two things to make this work. Once you get in here, all you really need to do is make sure that that voice type that you're using is selected for his character. You may want to add a faction for multiple reasons. If you're doing dialogue, a lot of times I use factions to control. If you have several different NPCs that can use the same dialogue, I'll just stick them all within that faction and then use that as a condition instead of get is ID. But for the most part, you may not, if it's only one NPC you're doing this to, you're not going to need to do anything there except for any other factions you create. I will let you guys do that on your own unless I'm requested to make a faction tutorial later on. So basically all you do is you add the voice type, as I said, and then you're going to need an AI package for it. I've already added this one here. I've created a ForceGreet package. I'm going to go ahead and delete that to show you how to add it. There are two ways of doing this. You can go in here and go to packages. I usually type the first letters and just start typing package, and it'll filter it all out for me and find it automatically if you just click somewhere in this general area. Just as a note, as a shortcut for a lot of people. And then I used AAA for the beginning of this. The only reason I did that is just to kind of make it easy to find. So if I double click this AI package that I created, I just pretty much created a new package. I basically attached it. Now I haven't created the topic yet for this AI package. Well, I haven't gone through that yet. I already have done this, but basically in this little spot, what you do is you go into your package template first and you select ForceGreet as your type of template. You can also do ForceGreet from sitting. You can do it from await sitting. I believe that this is just your generic ForceGreet here. And then your sitting one is generally, you want to use that, for example, if you want them to use a wall lean marker or something like that, and then when you get close to them, they can start talking to you. That's a good way to do that. I think this one is just kind of like a combination of your generic ForceGreet and then the from sitting. I haven't used this one yet, but I believe they just kind of sit and wait at that marker, and then they can get up and walk towards you and greet you that way, and that's another way to do it. But for this tutorial, for the sake of ease, I'm going to just do a generic ForceGreet. Now NPC force wait location is just where they're going to wait and where their location is going to be. You can set it to a lot of different things. I just did near self for the sake of just being fast. You can set it near a reference or a linked reference or anything. You could set them up to a marker or a piece of furniture or anywhere you want to set them. Trigger location, I just usually kind of set it for the same unless I have a particular area that I want them to something else that I want to reference. ForceGreet distance. Now that's going to be the distance that the player has to be from him in order to ForceGreet, from what I understand. And I just pretty much leave that at default unless you want to increase that radius and you want them to start that greeting a little further out. For flags, I don't do a whole lot. I do tick must complete for these just to make sure that they do perform that particular task. That just means that they have to complete this task before this package can end, before another one can play. And then for conditions, how I did this is I did a get VM quest variable, and what this is I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but you could do get quest variable and then look at the quest script that way back in the days of Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3, and you could actually do that, then locate your a variable within that quest script and then set a condition for that. This is the same exact thing. But remember, you do have to, within that quest script, you do absolutely have to set a special condition within that. Okay? And that condition has to be, you have to make sure that it's conditional. Excuse me. And then, in order for this to play, at default, it's always going to be 0 unless you set it specifically otherwise within your script. It'll always be 0. So I just zeroed this out so that it knows that it has not played yet. Okay, but if it plays and it's set to 1, this variable will become invalid. Okay, and that's really all you need to do for the AI package. Now there are two ways you can drag and drop it into their AI packages area of the actor, or if I delete that again, I can do an add, and then AAA. It was already at the top, but whatever, and double click it and it adds it in. That's all you have to do. And you'll probably want other packages doing other stuff when this condition is set to 1, just so that they have something else to do within the world. And if you don't do that, they may ForceGreet anyway. So anyway, just ignore this error. It's just a model loading error, and I've got custom meshes in here. Okay, so the next thing we do is we're going to go back to our quest, and we're going to go back in here and we're going to create our dialogue. Now, within most of the time when you're creating dialogue, you're going to want to do a couple of different things. You're going to want player dialogue. There are different kinds of dialogue in here, and maybe I'll brief over these real quick for you. Basically, I'm not going to click through every button. Player dialogue is going to contain basic dialogue, anything generic that you want them to say, that isn't going to be that complicated to set up. Things like detection are going to be for, like, if they detect if they lose track of the player or whatever during combat, or if they detect that you're a thief, stealing whatever, or that you have a weapon out or you're smashing things. Miscellaneous handles your hellos, goodbyes, and just generic stuff, and then your combat dialogue will be located here. Okay, so disregarding all that, we're going to go back on topic here, and we're going to go to dialogue views. And this is the way I would set up your ForceGreet, because it really does need to be done through this. Now, what I've done is I've created basically a branch, and I've created 2 topics in here that are linked together. So this is your starting topic. This is the first one that you'll put in, and you'll create a response. Now in here, you're going to want to actually, remember how we gave him a custom voice type? You're going to want to record down here and record your dialogue and then save it to make sure that there's some kind of sound file there. Otherwise, it probably won't play. Okay? the other thing I would do is set say once in here, and that's just to ensure that he only uses this once. The other thing is just as kind of a backup, I like to do redundancies in here and make sure that everything shuts off. I created a script fragment. Now this doesn't look like an ordinary script fragment simply because there are lots, usually it's like a hexadecimal number. You can change this by going to Advanced tab and then renaming the script. And then one moment. Alright, sorry about that, guys. Had people coming through the door. So anyway, where was I? So I believe I was talking about, oh yeah, I was talking about the papyrus fragment that I created here. So yeah, I just explained here that you can rename your scripts to the Advanced tab, and it makes it easier. I like to do that because it generally makes it just easier to organize, easier to find when you're trying to save your scripts and back them up. Okay, so the other thing I did, so once you create your script, I just usually do something like along the lines of just doing, you know, comment and then compiling that all on its own, just to get a papyrus script up and running and compiled, and then I go in here and I'll rename it, and then once all that's done, I go back in here and edit the source, because you're gonna have to create a custom property that you can't set in the properties tab very easily. A lot of times I just have trouble. You can do it there, it's just not as easy. What you're gonna want to do is write in the name of your primary quest script here. That will absolutely have to be here, and then you want to set, you call it property, and then I named this property quest script. Okay, and this is the name of our main quest script here. Okay, and then what you're going to want to do is go under properties and then click on that, edit value. Okay, and then notice how it drops, when it drops down it only shows my quest name here, and that's because of that quest script. Okay, and then what you want to do is you type in quest script dot, and because we named that, remember how we named that property, that integer property greet, that's what we're looking for here. So we go ahead and reference that by doing dot greet, and then we set it to 1 by going equals 1. Okay, we don't have to use set or anything like that in Papyrus. Then you compile it, and notice we didn't get errors. Okay, yep, there it goes, no errors. Well, we're still waiting for a second. Okay, yep, there we go. All right, no errors. And then that's pretty much, I mean, I just do this as a redundancy thing. It may not be totally necessary, but I like to make sure that that it knows that once it says this, it has said it, and now to change that. Usually you're gonna wanna put this like in your, I would usually put it in the area where you actually pay them, to make sure that this no longer runs. That's another way to do it. So for example, if you were gonna say, hey, you owe me 200 septums because of such and such bounty, then what you're gonna want to do is you'll want them to probably keep playing that until that's over. Another thing you can do is you can do a walk. Well, we'll ignore that for now, because I think there's a way you can actually set it on combat that when they walk away they'll attack as well, but it looks like we don't really have a anything else here. It's just looking for another topic. We'll ignore that area for now. But like I said, there's so many ways of doing it. You kind of have to look at it yourself and look at what Bethesda did in their ForceGreet quest. A good one to look for is the crime system, okay, and how they did that. And my way is a little bit different. It's kind of a modification of that. So anyway, this will just stop this ForceGreet from playing over and over again once it does this. And you may actually have to put this within your in this other topic where you actually pay them. I'm not entirely certain. We may actually have a bug because of this. I'll put up a result video later on to see if this worked correctly or not. Okay. I just don't have time right now. So basically you have a couple different options. You want your great, leave me alone, or okay. This means, hey, okay, I'm paying. This is where you would put your pay option in. And actually this would be the perfect place to put that little script that I showed you earlier. And the reason for that is once you've paid him, then you don't want it to show again. But you may want it to show over and over again if that's unpaid, if that's a debt left for them to deal with. So just something to be aware of. Now to do this, you would just create, you go in here and you just add another topic to create the pay topic. And I'll go ahead and you can break this link. Notice there was a line here. To link these together, all you have to do is click on this, see where this hand is, drag it over here, and see, you now have that linked. Okay, so really, I mean, that's pretty much all there is to it. Oh, one other thing. When you're doing dialogue, you will need to do a get is ID or get faction. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes I use factions for several actors to be able to use them as a condition in here. You can also use voice type or actor. Or get his ID to find a particular actor. So anyway, just some things to know, and hopefully this tutorial helped you today. Happy Skyrim modding.